What's up, guys? Rick here with your Procore Championship preview, the event formerly known as the Fortinet Championship, formerly known as the Safeway Open, formerly known as the Fries.com Open, formerly known as the Fries Electronic Open. Same event, same course, same hopefully great analysis as we jump into this. But before we do, it is really nice to be back to the full field events with a cut. The NFL had its time in the spotlight, but now the big boys are back, and that is the PGA Tour. The Listener League is also back. So back on splashsports.com. Thank you for all who got into the Survivor and the one and done last year and all the fun stuff. But now it's back to the weekly Listener Leagues and the one and done starting again in January. If you haven't seen this before, the $4,500 purse is fully guaranteed. So no matter how many people get in, that is going to be paid out, and you pick one golfer from each of 6 tiers, and then your lowest score is dropped, which is something that was very well received last year. So the link is in the description for that. You can go sign up. Hopefully that fills rather quickly, and we can continue to grow this here in the fall. But I'm not going to waste any more of your time. I'm going to jump right on into this. All right, everything that you see from this point forward will be from my website, RickRunGood.com. It's a giant database and tools for fantasy golf and golf betting. I love it. I think that you will love it too. And Silverado Resort, the North Course. This is in Napa, and here are the statistics. And what you're seeing here in terms of correlated stats to success is there's not really one stat that is very highly correlated. In fact, most of these are below average in terms of the strength of correlation. I think you could make an argument that looking at driving distance, ranking 30th, which is about the middle of the pack, accuracy, again, 36th, middle of the pack. But then looking at some of these secondary correlated stats, driving efficiency, longest drives being kind of both in that top third. I think the way that you drive it tends to find a little bit of correlation, but really you miss the fairway, you're not going to be in trouble. It is in its own name a resort course. And what do we see from resort courses is that the pros generally destroy them. I think there's a little bit of wonkiness kind of on and around the greens, but I don't think it's going to stop anyone. I think the way that you are trying to handicap this and what we've seen over the years is that the best players kind of get to the top of the board. Yeah, I mean, we've seen Max Homa win this twice, and it's just something where if you can strike it, if you can give yourself enough opportunities, you have a really good chance of winning. Now, there are going to be some newer-ish names, at least guys that did not make a run deep into the playoffs. Remember, this is not entirely, but this is an event that, you know, the guys outside the top 50 can improve their status for the season start in January. And that does not stop some guys from playing. You're going to see in a second, like Sahith is here, Max Homa's here, Wyndham Clark is here, guys that are getting ready for the President's Cup. They can play this if they want, but it's kind of a little bit of a mixed bag, and I think it creates a little bit of a top-heavy situation. So let's check out that cheat sheet here, and this is fascinating. First off, Sahith at $10,600 is probably the most expensive he's ever been. No, I lied. $10,700 in Mexico in 2023. That was the most expensive he's ever been. This is the second most expensive he has ever been. And then you get Wyndham Clark at $10,400 and Max Homa at $10,000. I am probably not going to end up doing this. We will see what the ownership is. We're going to have a live show Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, just like normal. The fall for me, every event is exactly the same. I don't care if it's the Masters or if it's Bermuda. You're basically going to get the same thing out of me. You're going to get the newsletter. You're going to get the preview show. You're going to get the live chat. You're going to get all that stuff, right? Everything for me is the same. So we roll on just like normal here. We'll know the projected ownership more on Wednesday, but this might be a really interesting spot to skip the 10K range. I rarely do it. And I think that they are clearly the best 3 golfers, but by nature, Sahith and Wyndham Clark are 2 of the most volatile golfers on the PGA Tour. Now that's good sometimes, right? It's really, really good sometimes. It's really bad sometimes. There's a lot of volatility there. And then of course, Max Homa, who we'll talk about, is in the midst of the worst stretch of golf in his entire career, and it's not even close. there is an argument to be made that you might just skip that 10K range and go down to the 9s. I'm interested in that. If you have an idea, if you have some thoughts, leave your comments in the chat. I'm interested to read what you guys are up to. But let's look at this as we do. Sahith has been great, right? He played well at the Tour Championship. He finished third after a pretty miserable BMW Championship, and honestly, a pretty miserable first 2 legs of the playoffs. But this is what I'm talking about in terms of volatility, right? Look at his summer. I mean, he is capable of finishing inside the top 15 at a major championship like he did at the PGA. The next week missed the cut or 2 weeks later missed the cut at the Canadian Open, then finished T12 at the Memorial. And it doesn't stop there. You know, it's 4th at the Scottish Open. It's a missed cut at the Open, then a T6 at the 3M, then 2 bad legs of the playoffs, and then a 3rd at the Tour Championship. I mean, you're looking at his strokes gain numbers, and they are routinely jumping 10 to 15 in terms of start by start, you know, -5 to +9, to -3 to +6, +4, -4, +8, -7, +9, -2, -13, +11, right? Like this is crazy stuff. So this is what I say when I'm talking about how volatile he is. Has not played this event since 2022, where he finished T6, finished T47 and T14 before that. I have routinely gotten Sahith wrong, but he is probably one of the guys in 2025 that I'm most excited about. I'll make sure to see the way that his natural progression continues, because he has been getting better season in, season out. The high end results are there. I'm sorry, he's the defending champion here. He played this event last year. I've got to add that to my database. I'll do that right now. But he won this event last year. My bad. So he went win and 6th in the last 2 years. Now, Wyndham Clark has been surprisingly more consistent than Sahith has been, and I think he's been splendid, right? You look at some of the results. He has gained strokes putting in every event since the US Open. He's piled up top 15 since there. The only place he's had trouble was at Royal Troon, where he lost 10.5 strokes from tee to green. If you guys watch this on a regular basis, you know, a links event at the Open, if you get smoked there, I'm not going to beat you up too much about it. And then he goes on this great run in the summer where he finishes inside the top 15 everywhere from the Olympics on. And we're getting signs that the second shot is coming back. That's kind of the thing for Wyndham. He's going to drive it far. He's going to hit it hard. I don't care that he sprays it. Here, it doesn't really matter. And then he's got to get those second shots dialed in. If he does that, he rolls enough putts. You look at what he's done at this event. He's only played it a handful of times. 2022, T43, T30 the year before that. Nothing inside the top 30. That T30 was his best result. He's probably the one that I think is most interesting. What I hope happens is people spend up for Sahith, and rightfully so, but I think he's just as volatile now as he's ever been. Or you go to Max Homa, who's won this event twice, finished T7. I don't know how many people are going to do that. If you're paying attention, he's played very poor golf. And then that leaves Wyndham Clark kind of stuck in the middle here. I want to see what the industry does with that. Speaking of Max Homa, I mean, we've covered this a lot. Last 36 rounds, he's the 103rd best player in this field. Okay. So that's losing a half stroke per round. He is 131st off the tee, and he is the 3rd most expensive golfer. That is not generally a good combination. Obviously, you get the bump because it is Max Homa. You get the bump because he's the back-to-back champion, and then he won, and then he finished 7th in last year's edition. If there was ever a place for him to get right, I think this would be it. But that's something I could have said a lot along the way, right? I could have said that at basically a bunch of different places. I mean, if you're looking at this profile, he's lost strokes off the tee in every event since the RBC Heritage. That was in April. He's lost strokes ball striking in 5 straight. He's lost strokes putting in 7 of 8. It's a disaster. If we go to the trends tool, and I don't usually use it like this, usually we look at golfers who are playing great against their baseline. We can sort this the other way and see that Max Homa in the last 36 rounds is a half a stroke per round worse than his 100 round baseline. Excuse me. He is a third of a stroke worse total over his baseline, which makes him a losing player here, a half a stroke to the negative in terms of his strokes gained trend number, which looks at his 100 round baseline, looks at what he's done recently in the last 36 rounds, and just it just doesn't add up. The hope is that Max Homa clicks here and just finds it. Now, hope is not a strategy for me. I'm also pretty sure, I'm actually quite confident in this. He's going through some coaching changes. I don't think he's working with Mark Blackburn anymore. There's just a lot happening for Max. Now, the 9K range is pretty interesting here. We've got a bunch of President's Cuppers, or at least a couple in here. Corey Connors on that team for the internationals. Who else? Minwoo Lee on the team for the internationals. Luke Clanton is back, $9,500. If you're not aware, Luke Clanton, amateur, and he's been playing a lot of PGA Tour events. He's super ridiculous off the tee. He is the next crop of young guys. He's put together a lot of really good finishes, including the last time we saw him, which was the Wyndham Championship. Finished 5th there. The ball striking numbers, the driving numbers are nuts. He has to clean up the short game. He did that at the Wyndham, so it is in there. It is possible. He can hit it wherever he wants off the tee. Doesn't have to be accurate. I don't care. I'm probably investing again in Luke Clanton. Very interested in Maverick McNealy. McNealy has probably played a lot better golf than you remember or you think last year. He's gaining a stroke per round in his last 36. That's the 9th best mark in this field. He putts it beautifully. So he's one of the best putters in this field, and he's been gaining strokes off the tee as well. Those other two stat categories, especially approach, we've got to get that dialed in. I don't love these types of golfers, but McNealy is one of the few that can out-putt his approach play. So if his approach play does struggle, which we saw him do that in Memphis, right? He lost a stroke and a half on approach. He picks up 2 around the green and 2 at the putter and still finishes T12. Now, if you get that to flip, and instead of losing a stroke and a half on approach, you gain a stroke and a half on approach, that's when Maverick McNealy becomes a legitimate top 5 upside golfer. That's what you're seeing here. A couple of starts at the Fortinet. His best result was a runner-up finish in T21. The rest of it is nothing really to write home about. Let's see what else we have here in this 9K range. I think that this is generally the type of week that people like to fire up Keith Mitchell. Kind of a bomb and gouge situation. He's one of the best off the tee players in the world. He flashed just enough putting 3 strokes to the positive at the Wyndham Championship that gets everybody all hot and bothered. I don't love this as much. Again, he rarely can out hit his putter. He did it at the Wyndham Championship, finished T12. Congratulations. I would actually probably prefer to just go with Minwoo Lee here. If I could only play one of these guys, Minwoo, Keith Mitchell, it's Minwoo for me, who can heat it up with the putter. In fact, he's a very good putter. He's gained strokes in 8 of his last 11 there. He drives it just as well, if not better, than Keith Mitchell does. He does have a second shot problem. He absolutely has a second shot problem. And if you want the intangibles, right, you're getting a golfer with a lot to play for to try to gear up for the President's Cup here in a couple weeks, which I'll be at. So if anybody's going to be in Montreal, looking forward to seeing you out there and meeting you and getting caught up with everything. The 8K range is pretty solid here. You've got some decent course history. You've got some guys who are starting to trend in the right direction. I narrow it down to a few here. Eric Cole is $8,700. Then Bo Hostler is 83. Chin Kim is 82. And then Mac Meisner, who I just love, is $8,000. So let's go through these very quickly. Eric Cole turned his season around in a big way after a really slow start. He does not drive it well. In fact, he's one of the worst drivers on the tour. He doesn't hit it far. He's inaccurate. He can get away with the inaccurate stuff here. And the far is something that he deals with all the time. He then is one of the better approach players and one of the better putters. That's the upside here. And ever since the US Open, he put together a really solid summer into the fall, had a couple of top 10 finishes, started to look back like that rookie of the year that we were expecting to see after a slow start. You look at his results here, played here last year, finished 4th, gained throughout the bag. Really part of that, like, solid aspect of his game. Like that's the stat line that you would want to see out of Eric Cole. Bo Hostler is next. This is such a Bo Hostler course, right? I mean, he's played here a ton. is that every year dating back to 2017. His last 4 have all been top 30s or better. I could probably argue that he's playing some of the better golf of his career right now. If you actually go back and look at this, he's lost at least 3.5 strokes or at least 3 strokes off the tee in Napa each of the last 3 years, and that has not stopped him from finishing inside the top 30 in each of those. He putts it well. He's hit his second shots really well, and he's been great around the greens. Well, look at what he's doing off the tee now, and that's actually been one of the better improvements for him in 2024. And you can see from previous years, just not a very good driver of the ball. And then kind of in April of last year, he starts to find something, and now he is a positive driver almost every single week. And we're seeing that again, 5 in a row to the positive off the tee. The rest of his game is still there. So what we're looking for is that marriage of fairway through green, in which he's been really good at Silverado, with his improved driving ability as of late. You put it together, good vibes here in general, a lot of experience, and you find yourself towards maybe the top of the board. Chan Kim, one of these guys who, if you just look at raw strokes gained over the last 36 rounds, he's probably a top 10 player in this field, and he's $8,200. And the reason for that is the summer run that he had that you might have missed, right? When the summer was filled with massive, massive big events from the Olympics and the major championships, and then the playoff, it just was huge. And Chan Kim wasn't really in any of those, right? But he finishes T12 at the John Deere, T10 at the ISCO, which was an opposite field event, T29 at the Barracuda, another opposite field event. He missed the cut on the number at 3M, and then he finishes strong at the Wyndham, gains 7 strokes to the field and finishes T12. So that is 3 top 12 finishes in his last 5. It is 4 top 30s in his last 5, and a lot of upside along the way. This is the type of golfer that gets off and is starting to find his stride and snaps into a really good fall. Because remember, his first full season on the PGA Tour was last year. There was just a lot of stuff he's got to figure out. Started to play a lot better as the year went on, and raw strokes gained. Again, raw, right? He's beating up on weaker fields, but guess what? This is kind of a weak field as well. And then Mac Meisner, I just love this guy. Right. I mean, he is putting together great results. He's nearly gaining across the board in every single category since the John Deere. He played almost the identical schedule, if not the identical schedule, as Chan Kim. So everything that I say about Chan Kim and the strength of field goes for Mac here. But his was 4 top 20s in the last 5, including a 4th place finish at the Barracuda. And I think that one, no, that's not the one I was thinking of with the huge playoff. That was the ISCO. And then he also, even before that, started to show and flash a little bit more upside. Right? He finished 5th at the Charles Schwab. He finished 10th at the Valero. He had himself a really strong year. It just probably wasn't one that was super on your radar because of the events that he ended up playing. Lastly here, Mac Hughes, I think, listen, I don't think I would have chosen Mac Hughes to be on my President's Cup team if I was the international captain, if I was Mike Weir, but I kind of get it. This is, in my opinion, not a Mac Hughes spot. For Mac Hughes, you want spots where playing out of the fairway is super valuable, and it covers up his lack of length off the tee. He's going to be a lot better at Royal Montreal than he's going to be here. I think there's a very narrow path for him to the top of the board this week, but maybe he becomes a little bit of a President's Cup hero in a couple of weeks. Lots of options here in the 7K range. I don't say it often, but honestly, Matt Kuchar's not a bad play. He's coming off the 12th at the Wyndham Championship, in which he had to come back Monday. Just what a total disaster, right? But it was 3rd at the 3M Open before that, and he's got back-to-back top 12 finishes at this event. He's putting it unreal right now. He's 4th in strokes gained putting over the last 36 rounds. He's been great. The other guys here that I think are interesting, Matty Schmid, who I always like, Rico Ho, he's been playing great golf. Remember, there's global golf here, and this is, toot my own horn for RickRunGood.com. Not only is the PGA Tour numbers, the Korn Ferry numbers, the Senior Tour numbers, but how about the European Tour numbers? How about the Live Golf stuff? So Matty Schmid just played the European Masters, finished T17, gained strokes throughout the bag, picked up nearly 4 off the tee. Dude, he's a masher. And then 5.2 from tee to green, including another 1.2 with the putter. That's how that works. So yeah, he is just really sound throughout the bag right now, and he's coming back and probably going to give these guys all that they can handle. Neil Shipley is here, $7,600. The jury is still out As everyone is loving Luke Clanton, and who else? My brain is malfunctioning. It is Neil Shipley. Oh, like you got Michael Thor Bjornsson rolling around. Neil Shipley might be the best of all these guys. Low am at the Masters, low am at the US Open, T20 at the Rocket Mortgage, T6 at the ISCO, in which I believe that was just one shot out of that playoff. I believe that ISCO had a 5-man playoff. So that's one shot out of the playoff. Then top 40s at the Barracuda and the 3M Open. He is a really good ball striker. The last 3 events, he gained at least 5.5 strokes ball striking. He's got a putting problem. He's got to figure out the putter. Has to roll the rock a little bit better than he has, but the jury is still very much out on Neil Shipley. This is a really good price for somebody who might end up being better than the guys that are $2,000 more expensive. I'm talking about Clanton. Clanton's awesome, but like this is a very good price for somebody who might be just as good. Patrick Fishburne is here. So his season comes to an end with a miscut at the Wyndham Championship, but he was on a roll prior to that. And the Wyndham Championship miscut was on the number. Look at what he did prior to that. 15th at the ISCO, 3rd at the Barracuda, T6 at the 3M Open. He's going to debut at the Procore in Napa this week, but even those good runs date back. T15 at the Rocket Mortgage. I mean, like legit upside, and especially in some of these weaker fields. If you look at, I guess I could do this, but if you do weak fields, I bet you he's probably one of the better players that we have out here. And I think this one is going to skew a little bit more weak than strong for this week. The rest of the 7K range is not all that inspiring, which is rare because usually you do get some decent options here, but this is sorted by the last 36 rounds. Ben Silverman's 3rd in this range, but you can see that he's kind of trailing off here, right? His better results were actually before this, and his results are going in the wrong direction, literally worse every single week. 17th, 18th, 31st, 40th, 53rd, then missed cut. I know that it doesn't necessarily have to continue in that way, but it is a little bit concerning. Same thing with, I guess Bridgman's been a little bit better. His 3 missed cuts in a row, and then he played better at the end of his season, but there is something a little uninspiring about all of these guys, whether it's recent form or lack of upside. I'll be interested to see what Pearson Coody does. He was in that 5-man playoff at the ISCO, and he comes up short, finishes T2, but I don't think he's this bad of a ball striker, right? I mean, he's losing a ton of strokes on approach at the end of last year. I'm interested to see, maybe he is. I mean, his whole year was pretty bad. I'm interested to see what year number 2 looks like for him on the PGA Tour, right? I mean, just all the pedigree in the world, amateur stuff, went to the University of Texas, it's been in the family forever. Interested to see what year number 2 is, because despite having a pretty significant flaw, the second shot, which is surprising to me, he had some good finishes last year. So I'm interested to see what happens there. And then I'm interested to see about Matthew NeSmith. There was a time where Matthew NeSmith was a top 20 tee to green player or a top 20 approach player on the PGA Tour. And we're pretty far removed from that, but he was in that playoff at the ISCO, gained 7 strokes on approach there. He finished T9 at the 3M Open, gained 3.2. He's flipped to the visor. Maybe I need to update his picture, but I think he's gone through a lot of swing changes. I think he might even have the yips at some point. Putting a lot better. Good trend line for NeSmith, but man, this is not a super comfortable range in which usually it is. Which is kind of interesting because if you do skip the 10K range, you could stock up on 9s and 8s and then maybe get down to just 1 or 2 guys in the 7s. You wouldn't have to live here like you would necessarily in other types of builds. Let's go to the 6K range. Okay, there is some value to be found here in the 6K range. So first off, Trace Crow finishes 24th and 7th at the 3M and the Wyndham. In terms of strokes gained total, he's 29th in this field, which means in this price range, he is much better than that over the last 36. Henrik Norlander is $6,800. You probably have no idea what Henrik Norlander has been up to, and I don't necessarily blame you for that. He's been playing his last 2 on the DP World Tour. So the British Masters, he finishes 53rd and picks up 6 strokes on approach. Then he plays the Omega Master, or European Masters, and picks up 11 ball striking. Dude's got a putter problem, right? He loses 3, 1.7, 2.7. He's lost 5 in a row. It has not been good with the flat stick, and he's not putted well here. So he is kind of our team no putt golfer for this week. He's $6,800. He's putting together good results in spite of that putter. I mean, that putter's struggling, and he's still put together worldwide 4 top 25s in his last 6 starts worldwide. And those last 2, the British Masters and the European Masters, might have a stronger field than this week. I don't know if that's true, because you are getting like Sahith and Wyndham. That'll bump up the strength of field, but tell you what, it's really not bad. How about this one? If you think European Tour stuff is a deep cut, how about Senior Tour stuff? And it's really difficult to compare these because they're just so different. But I love a golfer who's got good vibes. And Stuart Sink won 2 starts ago on the Senior Tour, finished 3rd last week on the Senior Tour, has played okay. 27th at the Canadian Open. He made a couple of cuts, but nothing to write home about. He's beating up on the seniors, and he's being averaged to slightly below average on the PGA Tour. He won this event. It was a couple years ago, but he won this event. Hasn't made the cut here since, which again, concerning. But is this like a strokes gain vibe type of situation? 51 years old now. Can he find a little bit of that magic, keep playing well, do it on the PGA Tour, one last go around and beat up these young bucks? Certainly possible. You know who else is here? Norman Zhang. I'm not super rational when it comes to Norm. And if you like volatility, Norm's your guy. Gets onto the PGA Tour via the Korn Ferry, won this time last year. Didn't get a ton of starts on the PGA Tour because of his status. Missed a lot of cuts. Played well at the Puerto Rico Open. There's nothing here statistically that says he's going to have a good week. But this dude is so talented. Haskins winner, starting to find it a little bit last year. Played well on the Korn Ferry. And now, year 2 starts or season 2 starts. I guess technically not, but you get what I mean for Norm. He's got to get more opportunities. And one way to do that would be play well this week. Let's see what the model says. Custom model, RickRunGood.com. I think we got to be a little bit cautious here. And we're just going to kind of stick with some of the the best stuff here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do strokes gain total, weighted strokes gain total for like 35, right? We've got to separate guys who are top tier PGA Tour players with guys that are coming from other tours. We have to do that. Then we are going to do strokes gain approach last 36 for 20. We are going to do strokes gain putting last 36 for 20. We are going to do 10 on course history, which will give a couple of these guys I don't necessarily want a nice little bump, but hey, that's the gist of it. And then we got 15 left. We're going to put it on birdie or better. Let's go out and make some birdies. Wow. Oh boy. My number 1 golfer is Corey Connors, which I don't love that. JJ Spawn is number 2. This is certainly the Procore /Fortinet /Safeway /Fries. Luke Clanton is 3rd. Smaller sample size than the rest of these guys, but almost getting to 36 rounds. McNeely, Eric Cole, Ben Silverman, Mac Hughes, Brendan Todd, Matt Kuchar, and Ben Coles. What I don't see is a 10K golfer there, which again kind of solidifies what I was mentioning earlier, what I was thinking about there. Connors gets a big boost from the weighted stuff because he's played so many of the top tier events. Wyndham is 14th. Sahith is 22nd. Homa is 56th in my model. Wow. All right. Well, I'll save this and we can get back to it on Wednesday, but let's go. Every week, nothing stops from here on out. Hop into that splash contest. Everything you need is in the description. I will talk to you guys soon. I'll see you on Wednesday.